hello everyone. Welcome to Bethel Backstage, or maybe I should say Bethel on stage, because I'm here on the stage of Bethel's Crown Point campus, and I am delighted to be joined with a friend and a colleague. This is Igor. I'll let him share his last name because it's a challenging one to say. But we're going to talk about the church in Ukraine, and we're going to learn a little bit about how the church in Ukraine, what they've learned about suffering and doing ministry in the midst of war, in the midst of terrible trials. And so we're excited to have you here, Igor, at Bethel Church. And so why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Igor Grishajev. I'm from Ukraine.
All right, fill it in a little bit. You got a wife, you got kids.
Yeah. I have a wife, her name is Tatiana, and we have 3 kids and 1 granddaughter.
Oh, so she gets all of the love right now, that granddaughter.
Yeah.
This
This
very
is
much
it.
so. So my connection with you, Igor, is through Global Action, and I'm sure there's people watching this that are not familiar with Global Action. Could you just describe who or what is Global Action, and what is your role with Global Action?
My role is to connect people, to meet with pastors from different denominations in Ukraine and Eastern Europe, to know their needs in equipping their leaders that the God's kingdom will be spread all over the earth. We are not working only in Ukraine or Eastern Europe, we are working also in India, Latin America, Eastern Europe and Ukraine. And wherever we work, we want to serve church, to equip their leaders that they will be effective. So that's why we are providing them basic knowledge about Bible, and to give them some of leadership skills that they will make disciples, and thus we hope church will grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Global Action, missions organization based out of the U.S., but with offices around the world.
Yeah.
And Igor, you are the director of Eastern Europe.
Yes.
Now, you live in Ukraine, and this is now where the story gets very interesting, because I'm sure that everybody who's watching this knows well what happened just over a year ago in Ukraine. And so why don't you tell us what happened, and what has it been like to live in Ukraine during a war?
If I may say, that the war started in 2014 for us, and we called the last year invasion with Russia a great invasion. So they continued more aggressively and attacking us from the north, from the east, and then from the southeast. And to live in the midst of these troubles, this war situation, is not easy. You need to understand that the life can be stopped abruptly. You stop thinking about, tomorrow I'll do different thing. On the contrary, you start thinking, I need to do it now. That's why it changed my ministry. I stopped thinking, I'll do that later. No, I need to train leaders now, today, since tomorrow I don't know if we would have chance. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure many of us, most of us in the U.S. have wondered, is there food in the grocery store? What's it like to, live with maybe reduced kind of income or reduced provisions? What's it like practically?
It was like that first 3 months after last year, after the invasion. We also helped, we helped army, we helped churches with products. So we saw empty shelves. It was like in the Soviet Union, but in the Soviet Union we had hope. But in that situation we couldn't do, but we continued to live and to serve people. If I stop, do you record? Oh, I forgot how to answer the questions. I just lost the thought.
Well, so I was wondering if the sort of daily life is. Are your
area.
needs
Yeah.
met, or
Yeah.
what's it like?
Yeah, nowadays things became different. Like starting from the time when Russians left the north of Ukraine in Kiev area,
Yeah.
and gradually we started having more and more food, meal, and groceries appeared in the stores. So it's in the West, it's like a background of where most businesses moved from the east to the west, started working. They pay taxes. Government motivated businesses to continue working. So in the West, we have a daily life, except of sometimes missiles could approach or hit some of the energetic objects or infrastructure objects. That's the only difference with the peaceful time. But daily life in the West is more relaxed and not difficult, like in the country in the East, where people just could live on daily basis in the bomb shelters or in destroyed buildings in their basements.
And I really want to focus more on that. The suffering of the people of Ukraine, especially Eastern Ukraine. You are in a network of 1,000 or more pastors through Global Action. And what are you hearing about the church in Eastern Ukraine? What are they dealing with? What's it like? Can you describe what you've heard?
Yeah. They all focus on how to come and share gospel, to bring food to people who just liberated, or in the front lines towns who are nearby the front line, and they come from different hubs we created from the beginning of invasion, in Kharkiv, Dnipro, Zaporizhia, and from these hubs they moved the help to the small towns in the front line, like 50 kilometers from the front line. They search for people in their basement or destroyed houses. They do mission trip to save people with the word of God, and just simply to come to their houses and ask them to come out, that they are free. Because some of people, they're afraid of coming out for days or weeks, thinking that Russians are there. That's the terrible situation, that people are scared to death, and they are afraid of anyone to meet. Since the Russians could be lost, they could appear, and people are just afraid of that. That's how and when our pastors could be on hand and help them with encouraging, praying, and food supply.
Yeah. So these pastors have gone through a terrible year. And can you describe what their experience has been like? And I don't know if you have a story or two of specific pastors and what they've done that might be inspiring. So what about pastors?
I have a story from Pastor Andrei Glatsovsky. He's the pastor of a church in the city of Kharkiv. He is one of other pastors who didn't leave their city or their communities, and they, the ones who we've been working close, I love him, the brother and the courage man, who arranged expeditions to find people in the apartment blocks. Could be 9 floors, could be 12, 16 floors, and they are successful in searching and finding people. And once they found a blind man left by children, maybe he said to them, "Go, I'm dying anyway." It's not because they are bad or good, but he was dying actually. And they just went not on with just, they were carrying bags with food, water. So that's not easy to come up, no electricity. To come up, just walking up to 9th floor, and they found him on the 9th floor. And he opened the door and he was surprised. And here we are. And there are other stories, not only in big cities, but in small towns. In everything what we are doing in Ukraine, I see these people pastors and churches who are saving them. I see them Christ disciples. That's the goal of Global Action, to help churches to make more disciples with a good knowledge of Bible. That's even in traumas trainings. I want these people to see the people who they are going to, our pastors who are going to serve these people with better knowledge about psychology. to see those people as the Christ disciples.
Well, no doubt trauma that I would think will take years and years to counsel or to heal from. What would be some lessons that the Church of Ukraine has learned that the church in the U.S. could learn from them? Spiritual lessons, what have been some of the big ones?
Courage to share gospel, whatever the situation is. I am amazed how in the dark, when we heard the sirens, how that already been like a light in the night. Immediately we started calling, chatting on the phones, what we are going to do, what to do. Some being scared inside.
Yeah.
But we talk about business, ministry.
In the bomb shelter, you will share the gospel.
Yeah. And we, for example, in the west of Ukraine, I will immediately talk on the phone with pastors who I know, because everybody woke up immediately, 4 o'clock in the morning. And we started thinking and praying and planning what to do with those who could come. We even didn't imagine that 7 million will go through West Ukraine. We didn't meet all 7 million, but some, like the church of who received 30,000 people in just for 3 months. Courage to share faith and courage to go and save people. They have just West anti-bullet vests, bulletproof vests. Some of them could have helmets. But they sit and they could be hit by drones, because airplanes don't fly, jets don't fly over Ukraine, Russian jets. We lock the sky by the anti-missile systems. But in the east, where the front line, that could happen. And I know two cases where one of our pastor from Poltava, Sergei, he and his team was going back from the frontline villages, and they saw a drone, and they became scared, and they just started fleeing from that drone, and it was chased them.
The drone chased them.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they got into the tree. That just because they were afraid. They, the driver was there. So that's. But they repaired the bus and again go back to frontline.
One of the lessons that I've observed from a distance is how adaptable the church has been to meet the needs of the hour. And you've shared stories about local churches that would be inundated with refugees fleeing from eastern Ukraine, and how that church viewed their building, viewed their homes as the Lord's. And can you tell us some stories about how churches adapted their ministry to minister to the needs?
It's good that not only pastors, but all churches, all church members stand in line. Let me take them. I want them. It's not just pastor, please go take them. We need them. No, there was immediately people in the churches united, and they started receiving these people in church, and if there was not enough space, families for 1 day, for 3 days, and at least the person will be settled either in the city or he was going to the west of in Europe. So they all were hospitable, and they gave their own things. If the people just left from east without anything, that's like us. We left everything. We sit in the car and we moved. It's no time to think what to take.
Yeah.
It's interesting moment also that how to live. You don't think property, car? No, you just sit and go. If you start thinking, I know many people in the east of Ukraine who, I can't leave. I have a house. My father, my grandfather lived here, and they killed either missiles or artillery or anything else. And so many people like that.
Wasn't that interesting? People sometimes will say, hey, if there's a fire in the house, what do you grab as you go out the door? Yeah, and it's similar to what, as they've had to leave. But it really highlights what's really important. And what's important isn't really things, it's people, it's life, relationships. And Ukrainians have been having to make those very difficult decisions.
Right.
And so there's certainly lessons for us to learn, from that. If somebody was watching this and they were very conscientious and they're like, I want to pray for Ukrainian gospel ministry, what would you tell them to have as a regular part of their prayers?
That the fire will be continued, that we will be continuing and thinking about the future and prepare ourselves for making disciples for today, now, that tomorrow they will make other disciples. That we won't become again lukewarm, but we'll be hot in the Lord, that we will continue to serve Him, not thinking that I can delay. No, you can't delay.
Yeah. Well, our hearts are with you, and our prayers are with you, and we are so delighted that you could be with us, and I so appreciate you joining on this podcast. And so may the Lord continue to use you, Igor, in the tremendous ways that He is, and Global Action as well. Praise God for that organization. And we're just delighted you could be with us. Thanks for coming to be a part of it.
Thank you very much.
You got it. All right. And that's your Bethel Backstage Ukraine edition.